What's up, everybody, and welcome back to another episode of the Iowa State Daily Sports Weekly Podcast. Once again, my name is Brett Twellmeyer. I'm going to be your host today, joined by my co-host, as always, Pavle Markovic. And today, we have a special guest for us, joining us for the first time, our other football reporter, Caden Storm. Caden, how's it going?
It's great to be here with you guys. I'm excited. Podcast debut for me. Never been on one, so we'll see how this goes.
Yeah, we're excited to have you. So, big game this week, North Dakota, first game of the Iowa State football season. It was announced on Monday that the depth chart came out, so we'll take a little deep dive into that for a little bit. Just Pavle, what are your first opening thoughts about it?
It seems like really not really too many surprises, kind of expected. I mean, you see kind of like going down, obviously running back, we expected Abu Sama to be the starter after his breakout year last year, and then seeing Noel and Higgins being the star wide receivers, again, not a surprise. But then seeing the wide receiver 3 being Benny Nagoye this year instead of Isaiah Alston, or Shannon Orr, but still, I think Benny Nagoye would get more looks just because he was able to play with Iowa State last year and get familiar with the system. So, I think that's interesting to me. I think he was well deserving of it, especially when he had that one catch for 46 yards in the Memphis game. That was an incredible catch, to say the least. And, I think he's really been able to show out, throughout camp, that he's been able to be able to be that third option for Rocco Becht.
And I like that you brought up that he has been a part of the system, but you brought up that one catch too, and that was his lone catch of the last season. But, I mean, then you've got guys behind him. You've got Isaiah Alston, who was at Army, a very run-heavy team, led that team in receiving yards the past 3 seasons. And last season, it really spoke out to me that he did it by only playing in 4 games.
Yeah, that's the thing with him. I'm hoping that he could be able to play more games for Iowa State this season, because just the injury bug seems to keep biting him every season. So, when you see him play, he's actually being able to produce. So that's the good thing about seeing it. So if he does play a limited amount of games and snaps, he should be able to produce a lot for Iowa State this season.
Yeah, those 2 guys, I'm excited to watch them this opening game. That's really what I'm going to be focused on, is which of those 2 guys. I feel like there is a wide open range of who could be this wide receiver 3. And then you throw in a third wide receiver into that, and that's Eli Green, who was at North Dakota State last season, played very well, and he is going to know this North Dakota team pretty well, I'd say.
Yeah, I mean, obviously he played against them before, same state, obviously. So, I'm intrigued to see him too, because I feel like it's just a wide open room with Daniel Jackson's injury. I think we talked about that before, if not, but still. Anyways, I really am liking this wide receiver room a lot because, obviously besides Noel and Higgins are like the rocks, we got to find out who's the 3. Like I know you said you're going to be watching out for this weekend, which I will be also. So it'll be a good time.
Caden, what do you like about this depth chart within the receivers?
So the receiver I'm looking at is Eli Green. You mentioned him from North Dakota. Interestingly enough, our receiver coach now, Noah Pauley at Iowa State, he was the receiving coach when they recruited Eli Green at North Dakota State. So I think they have some familiarity there. And I think that'll help him, but obviously it hasn't helped him on the depth chart so far. Yeah. But he led the team in receiving yards last year for North Dakota State. He led the team in all-purpose yards at North Dakota State. And I think he could really give him a few weeks to settle in. I think it'd be a good depth piece for us.
Yeah, and I feel like you can't look at this game and say, okay, we're going to have these 3 guys and we're going to choose our clear-cut number 3 after this game. That's just not going to happen because the point of these non-conference games is to get set up for the conference games. But you kind of have to get an idea of what you're getting into because that Iowa game is right around the corner as game number 2. So this wide receiver room, there's a lot of talent here. It's really deep. But there is now that battle because we did have Daniel Jackson out for the season with his lower leg injury, which was a bit, disappointing. I was excited to watch him this season in his senior year, but just won't happen.
Yeah, and you mentioned just the wide receiver battle there, because I feel like all 3 of these games are important for that one position, but that Iowa game is really where you're going to show because, Iowa's defense is going to be stout. They're going to be holding up Iowa's State's offense. We're probably going to have to punt a lot, even though that's kind of the situation you play in Iowa defense. But still, that's really what I want to show out because, with these lower level teams like North Dakota and then our third game against Arkansas State, that's kind of easier competition, I'd say, to be able to show out because Iowa has those good corners and safeties to really be able to test yourself. And that's what I'm really looking forward to see, is that Iowa game, truly, to see if someone really shows out besides Higgins and Knoll.
And a lot of the things that I really like about the offense too, you look at Rocco Becht, you look at Abu Sama, you look at Benjamin Brahmer. Rocco is a redshirt, but all of those guys are sophomores. This is their second season as a starter on this offense.
Yeah, that's what I'm looking forward to, because, they're here for most likely the long haul, barring I doubt they'd transfer or anything, like go to the NFL. But still, this is a young future for this Iowa State team. I know Knoll and Higgins are both seniors this year, so the receiver room's going to be lacking those top two talents after this season, which will be unfortunate. But, we'll get these younger guys to fill in for them. Maybe these Nagoye, Alston, or even Eli Green can show out and be those wide receiver 1, our wide receiver 2 for next year, for them to actually flourish without those two.
Yeah. Kaden, what do you think about how this future of this program is kind of shaping up right now?
Well, right now, you can see everyone's kind of sophomores. That's a younger team, but really they're all pretty experienced when you really think about it. I mean, Rocco Becht started every single game last year. Yep. Abu Sama, started off slower, but he was definitely, I'd say, the feature back near the end of the season. Maybe not the starter in a typical sense, but he was definitely the feature back. Obviously, you have Noel and Higgins. They're going to be gone, but Eli Green, we'll have him back next year. He's a junior. He should be back next year. Even Kai Black was heavily touted out of high school, out of Urbandale, I believe. So, I think our wide receiver core is really deep, and it sucks that we lost Jackson this year. Yeah. But I think if we could afford to lose a player at one position, wide receiver may have been it because of how deep we are there. And that's not even mentioning Ben Bramer. At tight end. He's a sophomore. He was a stud last year, and I think he could have a Kohler type of career where he's here for 4 or 5 years and really is a staple in our offense for years to come.
Yeah, and I like what you said about Abu Sama with him becoming the feature back this year. And during our football predictions, which we're going to have out hopefully soon, I have him as my offensive MVP. You look at his stats that he had last season, and he had only 84 carries, but 614 yards. That comes out to just over 7 yards per carry. That's what you want out of a running back.
That's what we really needed. Last year he competed with guys like Cartavius Norton and Eli Sanders, who have been there years past. So it was really nice for him to really break out late season. BYU, Kansas State, mainly being those 2 games that really he showed out to be what would be now the starting running back for the Iowa State season from now until forever long, however long he stays. So, I'm really excited to see him play. I know he's one of my players to watch for his upcoming game against North Dakota, to see if he can still keep on track with what he did that late last season. So, yeah.
Yeah, and I think he'll be able to do it behind this offensive line that is returning a ton of starters this year as well. But then you kind of look over on the defensive side, and I'm very excited to watch these corners, the safeties, the entire secondary, mostly because we've talked about it a lot. TJ Tampa's gone. So now it's going to be like, okay, next man up. And that comes down to guys like Miles Purchase. Jontez Williams could possibly step up. Darian Porter. Another guy that I'm really looking forward to on the secondary side of things is Bo Freiler, who was announced that he would be a captain again this year as well.
Bo is well deserving of that captain spot. He's really the anchor of that defense now, especially with TJ and Gary Vaughn gone. And now these younger players could look up to him if they want advice. So, I'm excited to see what Bo does in his senior season now. And, I just really think he's going to, obviously he still has been. I think he will be that still anchor.
Yeah. Kaden, what do you think?
On the defensive side, what I'm most interested in is Darian Porter getting that starting cornerback spot. Yeah. He's been here for 5 years now, I believe. And I don't think he's ever started a game on defense. He used to be a receiver, switch over defense. He's been a stud special teams player for us pretty much his whole career. I think he's blocked 3 or 4 punts in his career. He's been a great leader. Campbell always speaks so highly of him no matter what it's about. He's just such a team guy. And him getting that first start at cornerback, I think, is really telling of what he's done this year in camp. And I'm excited to see what he does with a full opportunity to be the starter out there.
Yeah, and I like that I feel like the secondary kind of mirrors the receiver room. They're both very deep. There's a lot of talent there. But the thing that feels a little bit different to me about the two is the wide receiver group has a few guys that are new to the program, maybe a bit unproven, whereas on the secondary, you've got a ton of returning talent here, guys that know the program, guys that have been around here, and they're finally getting their shot to be on top.
Yeah, and you see guys like, Jamison Patton, who's behind Jeremiah Cooper in the free safety spot, and We're talking about Drew Surges has been there. I know Campbell spoke highly of him. Like, like what I was talking about with people who have experience in the program. Like, these guys have been here and have played like key snaps for Iowa State, whether it be defense or special teams. So, I'm looking forward for them to potentially step up, barring any injuries or anything for to happen. But if they do, I think they will be able to show out and shine on the big stage.
Yeah, and then we talked about Freiler being one of those captains. There's another defensive captain for the entire season, and that is J.R. Singleton, wearing the number 58 once again for the second straight season. I'm excited to see what he can do once again, being a captain and everything. Another guy that I really am excited for is Dom Orange. I remember at the spring game, he had one of the just craziest sacks. He chased around, I believe it was J.J. Cole for maybe like 15 yards. He ended up getting the sack. So I think that he's going to be an electrifying guy and can get back at some quarterbacks this year.
And, I kind of wish he got a sack last year. Every time he tried to, he just couldn't end up finishing the sack. But, I know for sure he's going to get at least like 3 or 4. That's my prediction. At least he's going to get 3 or 4 sacks this year because he had 2 tackles for loss last year, so with his bigger role, I think he's going to be able to really step up and get to the quarterback quicker now.
Yeah. Caden, any thoughts?
I like Orange.
Yeah.
I like him a lot. I mean, you guys are just talking about him. He's a physical freak. I mean, I don't have a lot to say. I just really want to see him play. Yeah. I'm really excited. He's just such a dog out there, man.
Well, he's got the skills, but I mean, he's also got the personality too. I mean, a couple weeks ago, he played Coach Campbell in the new college football video game.
Yeah.
I was talking to Tyler O'Needham and Jalen Higgins at not practice media the other day, and they both said like, yeah, if Dom won the game, we got to go early and everything, and he beat Coach Campbell. So I bet they were pretty happy about that. Definitely gained some points.
So yeah, some Coach Campbell points. Yeah. So I mean, it really shows the team chemistry that this team has. Though. They're all celebrating one teammate beating out Coach Campbell to leave practice early in just a day. So I'm excited to see this group cohesion really show out on the big stage because it's going to be an exciting year for them to flourish with the new conference.
And then I guess we'll just touch on the linebackers as well. That's the other room that we're going to look at. The guy that I am most looking forward to is Caleb Bacon. 100% Caleb Bacon. I'm so excited for him. He's taking over this group from Jerry Vaughn, so I'm very, very excited to see what he can do.
He's sat under Gary. He got all that leadership from a guy who's been with the program, shown out for the program too. So I think Caleb Bacon, this is going to be his year to shine. And last year he was second in the team, tied for second with 3 sacks. So I'm looking forward to him getting more to the quarterback as well as being like that leader in the linebacker room too.
Caden, any linebacker that you're excited for?
I mean, you'll see it in the season predictions we put out, but Caleb Bacon's my defensive MVP for this year. I'm pretty sure PFF college football, highest graded linebacker in the country, and he didn't even start last year. You guys are talking about his numbers. Now that he's got a full starting role, his numbers will only get better. I would not be shocked if he is an all Big 12 team member this year. I mean, he's that good. Campbell was giving comparisons to blanking on the name right now. I can't. This is such a bad brain.
Jake Hummel.
Jake Hummel. Oh my goodness, yes. And that is a big comparison to make. A guy that was with the program for so long, stuck it out, and became an NFL player. That's the type of guy Campbell sees Caleb Bacon as.
Yeah.
I'm sorry I forgot your name. I promise you I know who you are. But I mean, that's a big comparison.
And I know another linebacker I was looking out for. When I saw the depth chart, one thing that surprised me was Cooper, I think it's Ebel. It's quote of the pronunciation guide, but he beat out Jack Sadowski for the will linebacker spot as the number 1. So I'm surprised with that. I know Cooper was with the team last year, but didn't really play much, and Jack really got the opportunity to play as a freshman and really show out. So I'm interested to see what Cooper does out there as a starter, and if Jack Sadowski could beat him out, or I know he'll still provide a big presence in that linebacker room, but it was interesting to me to see Cooper above Jack in the depth chart.
That's something where we could see those two maybe alternate roles this season. Maybe one is in, then the other subs out.
Kind of like the wide receiver 3.
Yeah. So, and they're both sophomores too. So they've got time to kind of sort things out. Maybe it'll be like a tag team punch sort of thing, kind of like how we've seen running backs in the past be. It could be something there. And just wanted to, real quick shout out to Tyler Perkins, the punter. Punters are people too.
We love punters.
Yep. So now kind of transitioning into this North Dakota game that we have coming up. I know a lot of people are going to pencil this one in as a win, but there's always that challenge of it's the first game. You've got some kinks to work out. And we've seen it in the past that Iowa State has struggled with FCS schools before. You think North Dakota State a few years ago, you think of UNI in some years past, that like triple overtime game with Will McIlvain as their quarterback.
Yeah.
That one was a rough watch.
Yeah, it was not a good one to watch. But, obviously each game you should not have to take like, this is going to be an easy team. It's like non-con especially, North Dakota's not going to be a team that's just going to let you walk all over them. So I'm really excited to see like Iowa State. I'm assuming they put the pedal to the metal to them because, I'd like to think they wouldn't take them lightly.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, but at that same point, you look at the game last year, Iowa State throttles UNI. I didn't really expect that to happen. You kind of think that the same thing could happen in this game, but you never really know.
Yeah.
And I really feel like Iowa State, Matt Campbell is not going to give North Dakota everything he has with this new playbook. And that kind of comes down to Taylor Mouser being the offensive coordinator and everything, just, kind of easing him into this role, getting used to everything, because there's a lot of differences this year. When you take into account him taking over the offense, you've got the new like radio, you can hear coaches in the helmet. That's new for quarterbacks. Like Rocco Beck's going to have to learn to adjust to that. You've also got the tablets on the sideline, which can definitely help things like later in the stretch, like 2-minute drills and stuff like that. 2-minute drills.
Yeah, the clock,
2-minute warning is here
2-minute warnings. Too.
Yeah. There's a lot that's different this year.
Yeah, it's turning into the NFL now at this point. So I think because we talked about Rocco Beck on media availability, and he said that he's had a good transition to listening to the coach's plays from the helmet. So I feel like, like you said, we're not going to probably see a lot of the playbook because it's a school like North Dakota, which means that it'll probably be like kind of like an NFL preseason game where we get to see like players like JJ Cole get a little bit more playing time to see what he can do and kind of the same offense against North Dakota. So I'm looking forward to see these backups get to play whenever they do in this game.
As much as I would love to see Rocco Beck just like sling it out there, throw it wide open to Noel and Higgins, I just don't think that's a possibility for this one. You don't want to give Iowa all that ammunition to work with how good their defense is. But just kind of looking at North Dakota last season, I know that there's some key differences. And Caden, I know that you were kind of looking at the quarterback position for that.
So yeah, their quarterback of last year, he actually transferred to Michigan State.
Yeah.
And he was their most decorated quarterback pretty much in their program history.
Yep.
That's Tommy Schuster, transferred to Michigan State. And the backup wasn't even actually the starter this year. Their backup is Trey Feeney. And now their starter, who was the third string last year, is Simon Romfo. Romfo only threw 2 passes last year.
Yeah.
But North Dakota coaches must have loved what they saw from that practice if they were to bump him up above last year's backup. So he must have got some good going for him. He's only 5'11". Hopefully we can get back to him, but apparently he's a good runner. So I'm not going to act like I know tons about them, but he's a scrambler out there. We struggled with that before, thinking back to that UNI game with Will McIlvain. We struggled with that, so we're going to have to put a wrap around him.
The quarterback as well, Romfo. I think it's interesting. He actually is 100% with his all-time completions. He is 3 for 3 with 18 yards.
What a stat line.
I don't know. I'll be interested to see how he plays and how this secondary responds to it. You think back to last year, early in the game, there was a pick 6 that happened. So maybe it could happen again. You never know.
And it's not really a good scenario for Romfo's first game to be against a team like Iowa State in Ames, But that's kind of the thing when you're kind of a school like an FCS team like North Dakota, you're going to be forced to travel to bigger schools, play bigger opponents in their home stadium with a lot of fans. So it's going to be an interesting, tough test for Romfo to really see what he can do. And that's really going to help North Dakota whether or not they should put in the other guy or should keep Romfo for the long haul.
And there's such a disparity with the types of schedules that FCS schools have compared to the FBS schools, because these FCS schools like North Dakota, schools like UNI or Drake, they're starting their seasons with these Power 5 teams. And that's to let the Power 5 teams kind of ease into their schedules. But you also, like we've talked about before, there are the scenarios where teams like North Dakota could end up getting the upset. And another thing that we did talk about earlier is these two teams have never faced before. So there could be some bragging rights that go along with this one.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to the new start to this opponent history because, obviously we're not going to see them too much because it's North Dakota. We're going to play other non-conference schools to let them play against a bigger school like Iowa State. So, but going back to the actual team itself, one player that could give Iowa State some fits is Bo Belquist, their wide receiver. He's played 4 seasons for North Dakota, and he's averaged besides 2020, the COVID year, we had 255 yards. He averaged over 500 yards catching with over 50 receptions. So, he's going to be most likely North Dakota's main target on offense. So it's going to be really interesting to see players like Miles Purchase or even Darian Porter and the safeties in Cooper and Freeler really see what they're going to do with a weapon like Belquist.
Yeah, and then kind of makes you wonder if Ramfo does kind of focus on him, what happens to everyone else on the offense? Does he try and use some of those other weapons because Iowa State might try and, put their best defender or double up on him throughout the game? A player that I was kind of looking at on the offensive side of things was North Dakota running back Gavin. I'm going to butcher this. Gavin Zybarth, I think is how you pronounce his name.
Close enough.
Yeah.
Close enough. Yeah.
Zybarth, whatever, which one was,
But he had 700 carries.
700 carries.
700 yards. Wow.
Workhorse.
I know how to read. 700 yards on 107 carries. He played in 11 games, so that comes to an average of 6.5 per carry. Someone who also played in 11 games last year was Abu Sama, so kind of making that comparison. Sama had about 20 less carries. He had about 80, 90 less yards, but he did average nearly a yard more per carry. So that running back battle is going to be an interesting one that I'm going to be focused on for sure.
And you see the competition with Zybarth, what he had, only averaging 6.5 yards per carry against FCS schools compared to Abu Sama, who played bigger Big 12 schools and averaged more per carry, 7.3. So, I still think Gavin is kind of a weapon for them for the running back. So I'm looking forward to see Iowa State's defensive line, see what they're going to do to handle him. But, that running back room is just going to be interesting to see for just, for the game.
Yeah. Back to Abu Sama a little bit. One thing that we saw him do last year was he was really good in those cold weather games. You saw Farmageddon against Kansas State, the snow piercing down, his best game of the season. You look at the BYU game, it was cold out there. That was his second best game of the season. That was kind of his first breakout performance before Kansas State. You go into this North Dakota game, it's still going to be in August. It's going to be hot, mid 80s out there. So we're going to have to kind of see, this is kind of the first game that we're going to see Sama be the lead back in warm weather. And I'm kind of interested to see how he can handle that.
And I don't think he will play the entire game, though. That's the thing. We'll get to see probably, I don't like to say maybe 2 or 3 quarters worth of him, depending on how big of a lead they get on North Dakota, because that gives away for Carson Hansen and Jalen Jackson, the new Cyclones, here to really show out and be able to see what they can do over the second half of the game, most likely. So, I'm interested to see what Abu does with this warmer weather game against this new team. So I think he will be fine, though. That's what the expectation is.
Yeah. And we've kind of talked about how this could be a trip-up game, but it probably won't be. And then you kind of look at how the odds are looking right now. Iowa State opens this game as of right now, 28.5-point favorites in this one. I don't think that'll happen. I think Iowa State's going to win, but it'll probably be a little bit closer than that. I'm thinking maybe more like 17-20 probably.
Yeah, I'm really skeptical of that line, because it seems really easy to take North Dakota plus 28.5, because I'd expect the Iowa State to not really score a ton, to get to that spread. So, that spread seems kind of high to me. So I think it will be a close game like you're talking about. Yeah. Maybe a 10-point win, maybe a 17-point win, but I don't think it's going to reach 20.5. No way.
Especially for the first game of the season, you got the first game jitters. We're probably going to see the backups in there at some point. So things go haywire. Caden, what do you think about this whole thing?
Yeah, right when I saw that number at 28.5, my first thought was, if I were a betting man, which I'm not, but if I was, I'd take North Dakota.
Yeah.
Because, we've all seen how Iowa State are in these week 1 FCS games.
Yeah.
A lot of the times they just flat out struggle and it's close. Or like last year, they get up big and they take their foot off the gas. And so either way, I think it's kind of a similar story. I don't think they're going to struggle. I think it'll be more of the latter. I think they'll get up big. You got Iowa the next week. No reason to put more carries on Abu Sama's legs. No reason to show anything in the offense. Get up 21, call off the dogs. I think North Dakota probably covers just because of that reason.
Yeah, that could totally happen. But I'm kind of hoping that last year wasn't kind of a fluky FCS style game because Iowa State has struggled in the past in these games, but they flat out dominated UNI last year. Looking at all the experience that's coming back on both sides of the ball, I mean, you're returning 19 of your 22 starters. Rocco Becht has a full season under him. He looks so much more confident. I think he handles himself much more confidently right now, and I think that we're going to see that in this opening game.
Yeah, and to your point, Caden, we're not going to be risking injury for these starting players, especially against a team like Iowa, and for the rest of the season against when we get into conference play.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, I'm really excited about these second-year players, Rocco Becht, Abu Sama, and stuff, and they're just going to really, I feel just show out and show why they're going to be potentially star players one day.
Yeah, and just kind of looking around the Big 12, Iowa State kicks off its season this Saturday from Jack Trice Stadium at 2:30 p.m. It should be a really fun day. The fans are going to be out all day. I really like these afternoon games because it means that you don't have to wake up that early and go to a game in the morning. It's in the afternoon. There's still time at night to do things.
True.
For those of you watching on TV, it will be on FS1. But looking around the Big 12 season starts on Thursday. We've got 4 matchups there, and I think that the one that we all kind of were looking at was that Colorado versus North Dakota State game.
And yeah, what you even see the line for it. Colorado's only favored to win -10, so that's really close. You see these other games like UCF's playing New Hampshire, they're favored -41, or Utah against Southern Utah. I know Utah's ranked 12th in the nation, but still -38.5, and you see that Colorado game, North Dakota State's going to play them well. Obviously, Iowa State has played that team before well, and they've competed well against them. So, that's really one of the big games this upcoming weekend to be an upset. And, obviously all eyes are going to be watching because, second year under Deion Sanders' regime. And, I feel like North Dakota State's going to give them the money. I feel like it could end up in a 1-score game.
Caden, what do you think?
I think everyone might be a little overrating North Dakota State here. They are not the North Dakota State of old. They're not the North Dakota State that won 10 straight FCS championships or something like that. They're just not quite that good anymore. They're still a very good FCS team, don't get me wrong. But Colorado does have that high-end talent. They do have Shadur Sanders. They do have Travis Hunter. Their transfer class does have good players in it. And it's honestly going to come down to whether Colorado is tougher this year because North Dakota State's going to run the ball. And if Colorado can stop it, I think they win easily. But if they don't, then we might be looking at a tough week 1 for the Big 12. But I think Colorado will settle in week 1. I think they get the job done.
Yeah. I have been so honestly back and forth about this game. I would love to pick North Dakota State. I think they'll keep it close, but Colorado at home to open the season. They'll probably get it done. Then we move into Friday, one Big 12 matchup that day. TCU travels to Stanford, who is in the ACC. Which
Atlantic Coast Stanford.
Yeah. I mean,
it's
so stupid.
Yes, conference realignment is so much fun.
Yeah. I don't think TCU should have a lot of problems in this game. I don't think Stanford's that great of a team. This isn't the TCU that made the national championship game a couple years ago, though. They might be fighting for a bowl game, maybe 5-6 wins, but I think they get the season started off right with a win against Stanford. Then we move into Saturday, where Iowa State does play later in the day, but I think the big game of the week for the Big 12 is West Virginia hosting number 8 Penn State.
That game's going to be so much fun to watch. I know, at least I will play. I don't know about you two, watching that game before we had the Jack Trice Stadium for the Iowa State game. That game's going to be a lot of flares. You see the line right now, only Penn State's projected to win -8. So, they always keep it close against each other. This rivalry is really intense. And now that's in Milan Puskar Stadium in Morgantown, I feel like that's kind of like the Colorado game. This could be one of the upsets where West Virginia wins at home and takes down number 8 Penn State.
We talked about it on our last podcast, the passion, the energy, how tough it is to play in West Virginia and how under the radar they were last year. I think that things are going to be rocking. They're going to make this stadium, they're going to make Penn State see this is Big 12 football. I do think Penn State will probably win, but I think West Virginia can definitely give Penn State some fits throughout the day.
It's a shame this isn't a night game, man.
I agree.
Could you imagine Morgantown rocking at a 7 p.m. kickoff for this game?
Yeah.
But it's 11 a.m. Perfect timing for us, I guess. Get to watch before the Iowa State game kicks off.
Yep.
Garrett Green, He's good. He's really good. I think he'll be one of the best quarterbacks in the Big 12 this year for West Virginia. But Penn State, I like Penn State this year. I really do. I think they're going to be really good as long as Drew Aller can kind of find his way a little bit more this year. West Virginia's going to make it tough. I think they're going to make it really tough, but I just don't know if they quite get it done. But I really like the Mountaineers this year. They're going to be a tough out every single week for every team.
I like both of these teams this year. I know that College Game Day last week, Pat McAfee picked West Virginia to win the Big 12. He may have been a little biased.
Yeah, a little biased.
Yeah, but I think that this year specifically is really going to benefit teams like Penn State, Ole Miss. I'd even throw like Notre Dame in there of the expanded playoff. Because teams like Penn State and Ole Miss, they're always really good.
They're always in that 8 to 10 range every single year.
But they're never good enough to make the playoff. And now that they have this opportunity, they've got a chance to make it. They've got a chance to host a playoff game and make it through the playoff and say, like, this is why the playoff should have been expanded years ago, because we're good and we deserve to be here.
100%. Those teams are like established teams that just obviously could never get over the huddle of teams like Georgia, Bama, Ohio State, and even Michigan now. Like they're just those 4 teams are really the teams that are obviously like favored to actually make the Final Four, which actually ends up happening. But I'm really excited about this expanded playoff format because I like more college football. I like how it means more with these games, with these extra games, because we get to see. It's kind of like what the NFL is, got more games rather than just two teams playing each other, and then all of a sudden, it's just championship game already. So, I'm excited to see this expanded playoff really like just take form and see what the playoff format looks like.
Final game that I know we were talking about was another Dakota school, South Dakota State, travels to Boone Pickens Stadium, Stillwater, Oklahoma, takes on number 17, Oklahoma State. Oklahoma State's who I have winning the Big 12 championship. Pavle, I know you have them finishing in second place. That one's going to be really good. We've got a lot of Big 12 teams playing Dakota teams in week 1, but the one that we are obviously going to be focused on the most is the Iowa State versus North Dakota game this Saturday, 2:30 p.m., Jack Trice Stadium, also on FS1. I hope to see every single one of you watching this game there. We're all going to be there. We couldn't be more excited for this game, and we thank you guys so much for watching our second episode back this season of the Sports Weekly podcast, and we will see you next time after the North Dakota game.